Good evening from Walden Lake, Virginia, the home of the Conrads, Stavrola and Christopher Conrad. And as you'll see, both from this and from a little later video, it's built very much like a Byzantine villa. And it's quite striking, sitting in the middle of the woods here in North America, and really feeling as if you were somewhere in the 12 or 1300s in Constantinople or Cappadocia. It's quite provocative. And I'm sitting here with Nikitas and Andreas Conrad, two young men who are, one still in secondary school and the other in university, who are going to ask a few questions. So we're going to have a little question and answer session for our broadcast this evening. And thank you for joining us. Who's going to go first? Nikitas? Yes.
Do you believe there is life anywhere else besides Earth?
I believe there's life anywhere else besides Earth. I'm really neutral about it because there are reasons why it's possible and reasons why it's probably impossible. But one of the main things is we're never going to know for sure. I don't see any reason why there couldn't be, but I can see many reasons why we're never going to know for certain. Some people think that UFOs are people from other planets visiting Earth, but I seriously doubt it because we have a good idea that there is no other intelligent life or developed life on any planet within a couple of million light years. And if somebody were traveling at the speed of light for, say, 3 million years, they still couldn't reach Earth because the universe is expanding. And the closer they got to the Earth, the farther away they would be. So I really suspect we'll never ever know the actual answer to that. But in theory, there's no reason why there couldn't be life elsewhere in the universe. There might be bacteria and that sort of thing on Mars even, but you're talking about really developed or intelligent life. And could be, but we'll never know. So, Andreas?
Will there ever be gay marriage in the church?
No. No. There'll never be same-sex marriage in the Orthodox Church. It'll never, simply won't happen, nor will there be women in the priesthood. It's simply contrary to revelation and prophecy. And that the reason women aren't in the priesthood as well is a matter of revelation and prophecy. It doesn't have to do with relative values of anybody at all, but it's simply not possible within the Orthodox Church.
What do you say to young Earth creationists when they tell you that the Earth is 5,000 years old?
Well, they usually say around 10,000 years old,
Okay.
and insist that dinosaurs and humans lived together. And I have a kind of a stock answer. I always tell them that the Flintstones was not a documentary, and that if they really need to believe that, it's fine. But you have to really need to believe it in order to believe it, because it's just completely false. And usually with somebody for whom it's a developed ideology, you can't really discuss it with them or talk to them about it. So you have to just explain what reality is, and they can take it or leave it. But some people seem to have such a weak faith that their faith can only be sustained by a false model of reality. And I wouldn't want to make their faith any weaker than it already is. But I would encourage people to learn to actually have faith instead of thinking that they have a young Earth, as it's only 10,000 years old. The trouble is that people think that faith is accepting a system of facts or a system of beliefs. But actual faith is an orientation of the soul toward the will of God. It is not coming into accord with a collection of facts. And that's part of the problem.
What do you say to people who mix their political and religious beliefs, who vote based on what they believe?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting that people's political beliefs are seldom ever shaped by their faith. Their faith is shaped by their political beliefs. The political beliefs are far more, permeate their being far more than their beliefs. Now, when people interpret Scripture, they interpret according to their political beliefs. They do not interpret their political beliefs according to Scripture. And you can always see what people think from a political point of view by the way they interpret God, the way they understand God. We have people, for example, who have become Orthodox from various backgrounds who refuse to accept the idea that God doesn't send anyone to heaven or to hell, and that God is only love, that we never fall into the hands of an angry God, that the anthropomorphisms in Scripture are not, absolutely not to be taken seriously. So they recreate God in their own image, and you can always see that they understand God from the fullness of their own heart, but this is shaped by their political orientation. So they completely reinterpret the Scripture and their understanding of God from their political orientation. So I think it's extremely important that we keep our politics, and our partisan politics in particular, out of the church, because it can only corrupt our faith and can only drag people down.
Why is there so much symbolism in the Bible?
Well, because language is essentially symbolic, and we convey everything that we convey in the way of knowledge, information, understanding is symbolic. Language develops on the matrix of vision. It's on the same neural system as vision. So language is a symbolic way of interpreting what we see. Consequently, although we sometimes forget it or don't pay attention to it, we live our lives by means of ritual, and we understand and convey understanding symbolically. It's more clear-cut and more direct in the Scripture, but we ourselves always use symbolism to convey ideas and concepts, except we don't think about it very often. So Scripture is really responding more directly to the way the human brain actually works, in a symbolic way, just the same as the Divine Liturgy. The symbolism of the Divine Liturgy conveys far more information than simply the words, because that's the way our brain works, and that's why the Scripture has so much symbolism and symbolic language in it.
What do you tell people that take the Bible word for word?
They take the Bible quite literally. That if you take the Bible literally, what you're actually saying is, I take the Bible literally the way I interpret what it says. Nobody actually takes the Bible literally. They take it literally according to their own interpretation of it. And if they take it literally, then generally speaking, they're going to miss the actual meaning of what's being said. Because the meaning of what's being said is being spoken of in metaphor, symbolically, and in a kind of artistic way. For example, the Psalter, the Psalms, are poetry. They're not meant to be read as prose. They're all poetic exhibitions, and really poetic cry of the heart, of the human heart. So when you read the Psalms as they were actually written, then the reason the Psalms are so beloved is because of the cry of every human heart. Almost every human emotion and problem and agony or pain, or every human hope, every human rebirth is all contained in the Psalms. But if you read it as prose, thinking that every single word must be taken literally, then there's no possible way that you'll ever understand it. And it's the same with the whole of the Scripture. Taken literally, it's incomprehensible.
How many saints are there in the Orthodox Church?
How many saints are there in the Orthodox Church? A whole lot. Thousands. All the ancient martyrs, of course, are classed as saints of the Church. But everybody who stands in the church for the liturgy is a saint. They're just saints that we put in icons and saints who are worshiping in the church, because saint means consecrated or dedicated to God.